Hey everybody, welcome back to When Harry Met Board Games, where we feed our people with relatable content, and our victory condition is your satisfaction. I'm Harry, and before we go any further, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button somewhere on the lower right hand side of your screen. That way we can move on with our lives and enjoy the rest of this video. Today we have another top 10 for you guys. Today I'll be covering my top 10 card games, and I want to be very clear and particular as to what I will be focusing on, because I personally love cards, as a game component. I love the feel of it. I love the tactile experience of shuffling, of just holding the hand of cards. So for this list, I had so many games I could have used to cover it, because nowadays so many games feature cards as some type of component. So in order to really zero in on particular style of games and omitting all of the rest, I had to make some criteria for this list. So first of all, I excluded games that include cards, but it feels like a real, more fully blown board game. There's some board there, whether the board is just there for, aesthetics purposes and really doesn't have any function at all. I excluded those kind of games. Games like Seven Wonders, for example, just feels like a bigger game. You're building your tableau, and you also have your wonders, which really just serve as spots for you to slide cards underneath and a representation of whatever resource you might have. But the point is, I excluded games like that. I excluded deck builders, because really what I was looking for was games that emphasize hand management. And with deck builders, it's really not about hand management. You pretty much play what you have. There are some cases where you have choices and decisions to be made, but for the most part, you play your hand. It's really just about constructing and building a deck, as the name says, deck building. That's really the emphasis of that style of game. So I excluded deck builders. I excluded lots of card drafting games, because I find that lots of them, it's not about hand management at all. It's about drafting the card and maybe adding it to your tableau. So games where tableau building were the emphasis, I excluded those from my list. And it's just strictly hand management. And with all of that being said, I will move on to my top 10 card games of all time. And the first one I am going to share with you all today is this one right here, Res Publica, designed by Reiner Knizia, and this edition here is published by Queen Games. This is an old set collection game where players are trying to gather sets of people group cards in order to turn them in for victory points. And what's interesting is that there's trading going on in this game. So players are, wheeling and dealing. They're talking back and forth with one another and making their deals. Well, actually, there's really not much wheeling and dealing. It's just wheeling or dealing, because you can only actually present half of the trade offer. You could either say, this is what I'm willing to give, or you could say, this is what I'm expecting in return. And then all the players in clockwise order take turns filling in the other half of the trade. What I appreciate most about this game is the trading mechanism, but it's a nice, neat set collection that takes place as well. And you do have some control as to what direction your game takes and what sets you're trying to, aim for, and what sets you're willing to give up. And ultimately, all of this is done in exchange for settlements and cities, which represent your victory points. My number 10 card game of all time, Res Publica. Now we move on to my number 9 board game, a card game of all time, and it's gonna be these two right here, Scarab Lords and Minotaur Lords, designed by Reiner Knizia. And these are this is Reiner Knizia. I said it before in other videos. This is Reiner Knizia's answer to games like Magic the Gathering. These are 2-player only games, one with a Greek mythology theme, the other with an Egyptian mythology theme, where players are vying control for actual, physical spaces represented on the board. This is kind of like his progression and evolution from concepts like Lost Cities and Battle Line. He evolved it and took it to the next step here with these cards, because they're kind of like thematic. There's different, elements of Greek mythology here, different elements of Egyptian mythology here, and the different cards do different things. And they basically are just numerical in nature, and you're comparing your numbers on your side of the board versus your opponent's numbers on their side of the board in each of the 6 different regions. And it's interesting because the 6 regions are divided into 2 major areas, and you need to have control of 2 of those regions in each of the 2 areas. So that's 4 in total in order to be the winner. So if you have 4 in total, but it's 3 in one area and only 1 in the other area, that doesn't count. So if at the beginning of your turn, you can, show that you have control of those 4 different regions, you are the winner. And you're playing different cards, and sometimes there's a little bit of take that. It's not as, I guess, nuanced as a game like Magic the Gathering. It's just, there is a little bit of nuance to it, because what he does is each of the cards has a phase in your turn order in which it could be played. There's 0, 1, and 2, and you can only play 1 card of a kind on each of those different phases. So sometimes you want to play 2 cards, but you can't in the same turn because they're both, phase 1 cards. You gotta pick one or the other. Really cool, really neat game, where if you run out of your deck, that's another way in which your opponent wins the game. If you ever run out of your deck and you don't have cards to draw, your opponent wins the game. So you can only go through the deck 1 time. Really neat, gives you lots of great decisions as to how to play the game. The 2 boxes can be interchanged. It could be integrated with one another. So it adds a little bit to the variety and the replayability. And I've had fun with this. My number 9 card game of all time. And now we move on to my number 8, and that is Babel, designed by Uwe Rosenberg and also Hagen Dorgathen, who I haven't really heard of since. But this game is a classic old Uwe Rosenberg game where you have 5 different regions, very similar to a game like Lost Cities, but more nuanced and more intricate, where you are playing different people group cards. And you got the Persians, and you got the Greeks, and you've got the Medes, and who else you got? You got the Babylonians and the Sumerians, I believe. And each of these people groups has a particular special power that's unique to that people group. And when you're placing these cards down in each of the 5 respective regions, first of all, those cards determine how much levels you can build your temple up to, because both players, this is a 2-player only game, both players are trying to build their temples to gain points. And the number of levels that your temple have, that's how many points you have. So, a 2-level temple is going to give you 2 points, and so on and so forth. And the amount of cards that you've played on this region says what's your maximum capacity for the levels of your temple. But also, if you ever have 3 or more in a row of the same people group, you can discard one of those, thus making yourself weaker, and your temple level or limit will be lower. But if you discard one of those cards from the bottom, that's, again, in a sequence of 3 or more of the same type, then you activate that people group's power. And all of the people group's powers here are devastating to the other player. They are really brutal. They make them discard cards. They make them lose levels to their temple. Sometimes they make you steal levels of their temple from them. Sometimes it makes them get rid of all the cards on their side of that region, therefore leaving them, starting from scratch all over again to build up their strength in that region. Really fun, cool game. It is mean, but it's 2-player only, so you don't feel like you're picking on the other person, because the other person is your one and only opponent. Something about these 2-player card games, I find that they scratch an itch for me. There might be a few more later on. Let's see. My number 8 card game of all time, Babel. Now we move on to my number 7 card game of all time, and that is Bohnanza, the Duel. And this is a 2-player implementation of Bohnanza, designed by Uwe Rosenberg. This is one of my wife's favorite games. As a matter of fact, for those who haven't seen other videos where I've covered this, this is the game that really got my wife into playing more frequently with me on a one-to-one basis. She would join for bigger groups and bigger events and so on and so forth, and occasionally we would play our one-to-one game. But when my friend, or our friend Lucy, bought this game for us, we really started playing. And I do think, for those who are familiar with Bohnanza, Uwe Rosenberg's classic game, building rows of beans and trading with one another. I feel like this is an excellent two-player implementation of the game, because this is a game, Bohnanza lives and dies on its trading mechanism. But in a two-player game, you cannot really trade. So instead, he replaces it with a gift phase where players take turns offering a bean as a gift to one another. And you either have to accept that gift and plant it immediately, or you have to decline and make a counter offer of a different type. So it's really tough, because sometimes what you have in the gift phase is you have a lot of pushback. You offer something, no, I turn it down. I offer something, no, you turn it down. And finally, you start to have less beans available to offer, and you either have to offer something that's really good or useful to you and you don't want to give it away, or take that garbage that the other player offered you, or worse yet, bluff and make an offer that you expect your opponent to turn down because you don't want to offer something else, but you also don't have that card in your hand that you're offering. And if they call your bluff, well, guess what? You're going to have to give them a gold coin, a point from your victory points. And points in this game are hard to come by. So 1 point makes a 2-point difference in a game that is relatively low scoring. Fun, again, excellent two-player implementation of Bohnanza. My number 7 card game of all time, Bohnanza the Duel. And now we move on to my number 6 card game of all time, and that is Lord of the Rings, the card game. The living card game from Fantasy Flight, designed by Nate French. This game is awesome. It's brilliant. First of all, I'm a fan of the intellectual property, Lord of the Rings. I'm a fan of how this game brings that world and that universe to life, all the way from, the different locations that are involved in this game, the different enemies that you face, and the different heroes, allies, and characters from the good side, from the Fellowship side, that bring you into that world and really let you see that this is a labor of love, how each character and their abilities kind of connect and relate to who these characters were about in the actual Middle-earth universe. Fun game. It's a great little puzzle. This is a cooperative game for 1 to 2 players. You can play it with more if you buy multiple sets. I've never even played this 2 players, and I don't think I want to. I've played this solo. I love the experience of immersing myself into this world and trying to solve this and break this code each time. You have a bunch of different factions, which for future play, you can mix and match and do some deck construction. I don't even do that. I just play with the factions the way they come out in the box. Some factions I've done very well with. There's one faction in particular I hardly ever win with. But this game is amazing. There's so much content out there, big expansions, small expansions. Fun game, awesome game. If you love the IP, if you love, card games that involve, lots of strategy, lots of plotting, lots of thoughtfulness in each and every decision that you make. It's not necessarily a light, beer and pretzel type of card game. There is some meatiness to the decisions you make. But again, tons of content, even in the base game alone, I find. My number 6 card game of all time, Lord of the Rings, the card game. And this might go up. I don't know. Can't put my finger on it, but I think maybe if I were better at it, I think that might be it. But my number 6 for now, pretty high, card game, Lord of the Rings, the card game. Now we move on to the top 5, the cream of the crop. My number 5 card game of all time is none other than, here I got it. No spoilers, no spoilers. Carson City, the card game. This is a card game implementation of the bigger board game known as Carson City. This is a Wild West themed game where players are building their portion of Carson City, and you're basically drafting different types of buildings or areas, basically represented by these cards. And these cards are squared shaped cards that have 4 quadrants, and in each of the 4 quadrants you have a different terrain type or a different city building, and each of these buildings score you points in diverse ways, right? And usually it's things like, you know, this building scores for, you know, such building that's adjacent to it, or this building scores equal to the amount of this type of building that are in your entire section of the city. And it's interesting because you are limited to a 8x8 grid in which you have to work with these cards and place them next to each other, adjacent to each other, overlapping with one another. And you can overlap as long as the terrains and building types that you overlap on the card underneath match them, right? So you can match, you know, a townhouse to a townhouse, right? And a city hall to a city hall, and a prison to a prison. You could also match, you could also put anything on top of a blank space. If you overlap a building on top of a blank space, that's a legal move. And just figuring out and manipulating how to use that 8x8 grid is really, really, really cool. Now, that sounds like tableau building, which is exactly what I warned against earlier on in the game. However, where the hand management comes is in the auction at the beginning of each round for turn order, because you have a hand of 9 cards within your own particular suit, ranging from 1 through 9, and you're playing like a little trick-taking game for your auction, where you each place cards face down, and whoever played the highest card gets priority in the turn order. And if there's ever a tie because you or 1 or 2 or more players play the same exact numbered card, we each as players have our own individual suit. And there is a stack of cards on the back of each of these cards, which keep on shuffling from round to round. There's the different suits and a rank for that order in order to break the tie. So you know when your suit is among the higher ranked on this turn, you know that you have a good chance of breaking those ties. If your suit is among the lower ranked on a turn, you also know that you don't have such an advantage as far as tiebreakers are concerned. And you factor that into your decision of which card you're going to play. How bad do I want first place in the turn order? How bad do I want second place? You know, what am I willing to give up? And you can only play these 9 cards once in each of the 2 eras or the 2 phases of this game. So again, you play a card, you're going to lose it. Managing that is where the hand management comes. And it's pretty simple, but at the same time, very intricate and very important. So that is why I included it on my list, and it made it as high as my number 5 card game of all time, Carson City, the card game. And now we're going to go to my number 4. My number 4 card game of all time is San Juan, and this is basically the card game version of Puerto Rico, and I think it might surpass Puerto Rico for me because I just love how it breaks it down, distills it into a, you know, fun, concise experience. I mean, back of the box says it's about 45 minutes. I think it takes a little bit less than that when we play 2 players, which is mostly what I play. This game, there's definitely tableau building going on with this game, because basically, you know, the way you win is by building your tableau with 12 cards or more, or at least that's the way you trigger the end of the game. However, there's absolutely hand management, because this is a multi-purpose use card game where each card can be used for various things. It could actually be used as a building that you build and add to your tableau. It could be used as the representation of a resource that one of your production buildings produces, simply by taking a card and sliding it underneath an already built building in your tableau. You indicate that that building has that good produced in it, which you could use later on for trading. And also, your cards are your money, because each building needs a certain amount of money to be built, and each card is worth 1 money. So if a card says you need 5 to build it, you need to discard 5 of the cards from your hand in order to pay for it. So that is where the hand management comes, because you look at your hand of cards and theoretically, ideally, you would love to place all of them onto your tableau, but you cannot realistically, because some of them have to be used as currency, as money. So making that decision as to which cards I want to play and how I'm going to work towards building certain buildings versus others is really the heart of the game. And these buildings that you build, among giving you victory points, they also give you special powers, special actions that you could carry out throughout the course of the game. And these actions all relate to the process of drawing cards, building cards, gathering resources, which again is all part of the collective process of your hand management. How am I going to play a card? Which building am I going to build down, and when am I going to build it down? And which cards am I going to use for money? Because they all cost the same as far as when you turn them in for money. They're all the same value in that case. But when you place them on your tableau, some are more valuable than others. And for the particular strategy that you've developed halfway into your game, 2 cards that in a vacuum might be, deemed as equal in that particular scenario, one is clearly favored over the other, but it might be a little bit more expensive. Is it really worth making the sacrifices to your hand that you need in order to get that into your tableau? So absolutely, hand management is an important part of this game. My number 4 card game of all time, San Juan. And now we move on to my number 3. And my number 3 is many people's number 1, and it is Magic the Gathering. Going back to this 2-player card game play that Magic the Gathering really popularized, back and forth, where 2 players are going at it. I love this game, the management of your resources, in particular your land that produce your mana, and just the, finding the game plans that work for your particular decks. Now, I use pre-constructed dual decks that I purchased, already made and already balanced. Some people do their own deck construction with cards that they buy in booster packs and so on and so forth. But the point is just finding out how to best utilize your deck in a way that will help you come out on top and have the advantage over your opponent. It's such a methodical process. Can there be a little bit of luck in the sense of luck of the draw? Yeah, I guess that's true. But at the same time, you should understand your deck and how to handle it. And again, that hand management, knowing which cards to place down first. Again, there is tableau building theoretically in this game, even though it wasn't known as such, all those decades ago. But you're placing cards down in front of you on the table, and a lot of what you're doing is with the cards that are in front of you. But again, that hand management, that decision of which land do I want to play on this turn, and which creature do I want to summon, or which spell do I want to cast on this particular turn, that will get me rolling and perhaps create some type of snowball effect so that I could power up and have some really great turns in future rounds. Really brilliant, awesome classic game. Can't say enough about it. My number 3 card game of all time, Magic the Gathering. And now we're going to go to my number 2, which is a very new game to me. I've only been playing it for a couple weeks, but I've already fallen in love. And it might be just the hype. It might just be the newness and the freshness of it all. We'll come and see a couple years from now, hey, this is still my number 2. But it is Android Netrunner. Yet another living card game from the Fantasy Flight line of games. Yet another game which the original design was by Richard Garfield, same designer as Magic the Gathering. However, this inventing of Android Netrunner that happened about 10 years ago already is by none other than Lucas Litzinger, who I've appreciated his re-implementation of already successful games. But again, Richard Garfield still has to get credit for the original design. This game is deep. It is not for everybody. It is absolutely not casual, and casualness was not a criteria that I used for my card game list. It's really just hand management. And there is a lot of hand management going on. Yes, again, there is a tableau. Players on their respective sides are building their own, hardware and programs and establishing their servers on the side of the evil corporation. And a lot of what you're doing, again, is with the cards that are on your tableau. However, you're still doing a lot with your hand management. There's certain operation cards that you play from your hand, and you activate whatever special ability. And again, just choosing what order you do things, which cards take priority, which cards get played first, and which cards will create that snowball effect or that engine that you need to keep on going forward throughout the rest of this game and will carry you into success. Making all those decisions from the cards in your hand are extremely crucial in this game of Android Netrunner. Again, I've only been playing it for a couple more weeks. I'm excited to continue to explore the possibilities in this game. I've only played from the corporation side. I've only played one of the factions in this game. So there's still I think there's 4 corporations and 3 runners. So there's a lot of content just in the base game alone. I'm excited about seeing where this game takes me. Maybe I will grow cold on it. That's absolutely a possibility. But for now, it's my number 2 card game of all time, Android Netrunner. And now we move on to my number 1. And I think this is going to be number 1 for a long time. And that is Race for the Galaxy, designed by Thomas Layman and published by Rio Grande Games. And this game is very similar to my number 4 game of all time. And the question is, why is this one above it? And why is it 3 spots above it? Well, I'm going to say this. It's not necessarily because of the theme, because I actually like how the San Juan theme feels a little bit more real, right? Because here, you're basically, both of these games are city building games. You're building your intergalactic city / empire in Race for the Galaxy, and you're building the city of San Juan, or at least your portion of it, in San Juan. But I guess I identify more with the real life buildings that are found in this game than I do with these planets and developments that are found in this game that are, you know, science fiction and futuristic and so on and so forth. However, I love the differences that this game provides over this one, mechanically speaking. First of all, I feel that the cards here are much more dynamic than the cards in San Juan. There are certain things that the cards here can do that the cards in San Juan cannot do. That's first of all. Second of all, I appreciate the fact that the maximum hand size is a little bit bigger. You can do things to mitigate that in San Juan, but as it stands, your maximum hand size is 7, while in Race for the Galaxy is 10. So that gives you a little bit more decision making, right? And again, I'm talking about card games from a hand management perspective. The bigger your hand is, the more decisions, the more options you have, and the more interesting it feels. You feel like you're more in control. So I do appreciate that. Also, I appreciate the fact that it's simultaneous play. San Juan has turn order, right? And here you have simultaneous play, and basically you have 2 sets of hand management going on at once, because you have your regular hand of cards, which are the cards that you're using to build your planets, to build your developments, using them as resources and using them as money, just like in San Juan. However, you also have a second hand of cards, which are your action cards, which you and your opponents are using each round to play and activate certain powers that all players will capitalize on. But if you're the only one who selected that power, you will get also a bonus action on it. And sometimes you want to anticipate and speculate as to what your opponent's going to decide, so you could pick something different and hopefully piggyback on the action that they picked, and also get to capitalize on the action you picked, getting more bang for your buck. This game, again, really, really neat. Adds so much more depth, in my opinion, to the San Juan game. Again, you've got those simultaneous actions that you're taking. And again, the cards are just a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more potent than those in San Juan. And that's why this is my number 1 card game of all time, Race for the Galaxy. And that's it, folks. Those are my top 10 card games of all time. I love card games. Most of my games have some sort of card component in them. But again, I had to limit it to, I am holding a hand of cards all game long, and I am basically deciding what I want to do with them, where I want to place them, right? And again, you know, a game, it might be controversial. Some of the games that I excluded, in particular, 7 Wonders. You know, why is 7 Wonders different than, you know, Race for the Galaxy of San Juan, when there is tableau going on? Again, the card drafting, pick and pass. I feel like you don't have a hand of cards. You have several hands of cards throughout the course of the game. That's first of all. And also, it just feels a little bit more broad in scope. And I guess it makes it feel more like a board game where you're watching everybody's tableau a little bit more closely. Again, for whatever reason, maybe I'm just making it up. For whatever reason, it just didn't quite qualify to make it to this list, but I do love Seven Wonders. These are my 10 favorite card games. Comment down below. Let me know what your favorite 10 card games are. Which ones of my choices do you feel should be utterly disqualified? Which ones have I missed? Which ones should I try out? Please, I am so interested in reading your comments down below. Please don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and I'll catch you guys next time. Thank you so much for joining us here at When Harry Met Board Games. Again, stay safe, stay healthy, and have fun gaming. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.